What's going on, guys? GloveSaveHockey here. In today's video, we're going to be going through all 32 NHL teams and identifying one guy who's off to a rough start. Now, I know with some teams, there could be a couple guys off to a rough start. There's also a couple teams where it was kind of hard to decide who is actually off to a rough start. Alright, so we are going to go through this in alphabetical order, beginning with the Anaheim Ducks. I'm going to be going with Frank Vatrano. Now, Frank Vatrano is off to a pretty poor start to the season. He's played in 17 games where he's got 2 goals and an assist for 3 points. As you can tell, over the past 3 seasons with the Ducks, he's really solidified himself as a goal scorer. 22 goals in 22-23, a career high of 37 in 23-24, then back down to 21 last year, but did have 45 points. He is nowhere near on pace to putting up even 20 goals this season. As you can tell, his offensive impact has been extremely down than it was last year. He was sitting in the 75th percentile for basically 2 seasons straight. Now he's down near the bottom of the league in accordance to generating offense. His defense has really never been there. For 4 years straight now, he's sitting right at the bottom in accordance to defensive impact. I think Frank Vatrano's really going to have to figure this out. He could really be losing his slot on this team real quickly. On now to the Boston Bruins, and I have chosen goaltender Joonas Korpisalo. Now, Joonas Korpisalo, has not really been a great goalie for a couple years now. This is his 3rd straight season that he's rocking under a .900 save percentage. Despite playing really good in LA and Columbus the year before, he was traded to LA at the deadline and played in the playoffs with them. He's got a 4-4-0 record right now with an .878 save percentage and a 3.35 goals against average. As you can tell, he's in the 5th percentile overall and in 5-on-5 play. His season last year was not much better, just sitting basically in the 30th percentile. Joonas Korpisalo at this point in his career, I think, is just a straight backup goalie that you cannot really rely upon a lot. He's got a $3 million cap hit for Boston, and Ottawa is also retaining $1 million of that. So I don't really think he's worth this contract whatsoever at all. I know Jeremy Swayman's not really having a great season either in accordance to his expectations, but he's definitely playing a lot better and deserving more starts than Joonas Korpisalo is at this point. He's definitely going to have to pick it up if he wants to be worth this contract. Now moving on to the Buffalo Sabres, and I have selected forward Peyton Krebs. Now, Peyton Krebs has never really been a high point producer in his NHL career. I think he was drafted to be one, the 17th overall pick back in 2019. In 17 games with the Sabres this year, he has not recorded a goal, and he's got 4 points overall. His career high in points was last year with 28, and he had 10 goals as well. I don't really think Peyton Krebs has turned out to be the player that he was when he was drafted. He's been kind of thrusted into a role playing second-line minutes, and his defensive and offensive impact just really has not been there. And honestly, I think it's time for Buffalo to move on from the player. I know it might be difficult because he was a part of that Jack Eichel trade where you also got Alex Tuch and you want it to work out. But as you can tell, he's been solid defensively for a couple years, but he just really hasn't broken out offensively, and I think this is definitely a replaceable player that you can find somewhere else on the market. On now to the Carolina Hurricanes, and we're going with winger Andrei Svechnikov. Offensively, he has not really been up to par this season. No, he hasn't been the flashiest point producer in his career, only getting to the 60s twice, and he was a 2nd overall pick. Definitely feel like his career has been a little bit underwhelming in accordance to standards. He's only at 7 points in 16 games so far this year and is really not impacting the ice really at either end. His defensive impact has never really been that great. Only league average basically a couple times, but he's only in the 37th percentile right now, and he's having his worst offensive season ever. He's been demoted to the 4th line a couple times and is only really playing 3rd-line minutes, considering they have a lot of younger guys that are kind of stepping up and making impact, like Logan Stankoven and Jackson Blake. Nikolai Ehlers is even picking it up a little bit. So Svechnikov's going to have to figure it out, or he's going to be the odd man out in Carolina. On now to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and we're going to be going with forward Kent Johnson. Now, last year, Kent Johnson had a great season. 57 points in 68 games. After being sent down to the Cleveland Monsters the year before, it was kind of surprising, I would say, for a guy who's a 5th overall pick and had a bunch of time in the NHL already. You'd hope that he could build off of last season, but this season, he really isn't so far. In 16 games, he's got 2 goals and 3 assists for 5 points. He just really isn't impacting the offensive zone like he was last year. I know Columbus has got some pretty good young players, and he can kind of lose his spot in the lineup quick, but that's kind of the way it is with a rebuilding team. A lot of teams have a lot of good young guys, and if you aren't performing, you are going to kind of be put down the depth chart. His defense is still about league league average, but you'd like Ken Johnson to get back to where he was producing last year, because he is in the middle of a contract right now, $1.8 million. You hope he can figure it out before that so he can get a nice payday. Now moving on to the Calgary Flames, we're going to be talking about forward Yegor Sharangovich. Now, Sharangovich came over to the Flames a couple years ago, and he was awesome in that Tyler Toffoli trade. 31 goals in 82 games. Last year, he was down to 17 goals and only had 32 points overall. This year in 16 games, 2 goals and 2 assists for 4 points. I'm starting to wonder if this is really the player that Yegor Sharangovich just is, and he had a career year a couple years ago. He really hasn't been impacting the game offensively much since that big year. His defensive production was good last year, but it's kind of tailed off a little bit this year, and I can see why he's been healthy scratched a couple times. Calgary kind of has a bunch of guys that are sort of in the mushy middle, like not a lot of first liners, kind of guys that are second and third liners, and he could be losing his spot on this team real quick if he doesn't start to produce. Now moving on to the Chicago Blackhawks, we're going to be talking about defenseman Alex Vlasic. Now Alex Vlasic isn't known for his offensive skills whatsoever. He did have 30 points in 82 games last year, which is impressive. He's got 4 points in 16 games this year. The one thing about Alex Vlasic is he's a very good defensive player who hasn't really been showing it a whole ton this year. I've been a little bit concerned with his game. I know other guys have kind of stepped in and taken a big role, like Sam Rinzel, Artem Levshinov. I do have a lot of trust in Alex Vlasic. I kind of think that this is just a little blip, and he is off to a rough start so far this year. If he can up his game, it'll definitely be a plus for Vlasic and the Hawks. On now to the Colorado Avalanche, and we're going to be talking about defenseman Devon Toews. Now, I don't think Devon Toews is having a super poor year by any stretch, but if we're talking about to offensive production, he's only got 7 assists in 18 games this year. He has shown that he can be a 50-plus point defenseman. If we're taking a look, though, at the one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is his overall defensive play. Look at the consistency from 2021 to 2025. Sitting amongst the best in accordance to defensive impact. That impact has really gone down so far this year in 18 games, sitting in the bottom quarter of percentile in the NHL. Devon Toews is obviously a special player. Definitely expecting to see him back on Team Canada again to play with Cale Makar. I think this might just be a little bit blip in his game, considering he has shown that he can consistently be a really good defensive player, and you hope he can pick it up throughout the season heading into the playoffs. On now to the Dallas Stars, and we're going to be talking about forward Tyler Seguin. Now, Tyler Seguin had a pretty good night a couple days ago, but he's not off to the hottest start offensively. 18 games played, he's got 6 goals and 2 assists for 8 points, considering last year, I know he was hurt, but he was eclipsing a point per game, 52 points the year before that. 50 the year before that. He's not quite on pace to do that so far this year. If you're taking a look at his analytics, his overall impact to the game has gone really down from last year. That 20-game stretch last year, his offense and defense was incredible. This year, it's not so much, and I think it's kind of being sheltered by Dallas playing some really good hockey and some guys around him playing really well, but I haven't been too impressed with Tyler Seguin's start to the season. On now to the Detroit Red Wings, and we're going to be talking about forward Andrew Kopp. Now, Andrew Kopp has never really been the greatest point producer. He was brought into Detroit to, I think, fill a second-line center role, which has not done whatsoever. He did have a good year in his first year here with 42 points, only scored 9 goals, though. This year in 17 games, he's got a goal and 6 assists for 7 points. Definitely is not good enough for a guy even trying to fill a middle six role. His defensive impact has been slightly below average, but his offensive impact has been pretty awful in the 7th percentile so far this year. So a guy that's getting paid $5.6 million for the next 2 years, they need to be asking for a lot more from Andrew Kopp if they want to be making the playoffs this season. On now to the Edmonton Oilers, and we're going to be talking about recently signed forward Trent Frederic. Now, Trent Frederic came in to play more of a physical style game, but you still would hope that he can produce offensively, considering he did have 18 goals and 40 points back in 23-24. In 19 games this year, he only has 1 goal. He hasn't recorded a single assist, and you can tell if you look at his analytics, his impact at both ends of the ice has been awful. I did not like this contract the second it was signed. The cap hit is decent, but the term on this is just awful. I don't know why you need to be giving a guy like this 8 years. Trent Frederic's definitely going to have to pick it up because the Oilers can't just rely on McDavid and Draisaitl to score, and this is a guy they brought in to bring in some secondary scoring. So Trent Frederic's really going to have to pick it up if the Oilers want to go back to the Stanley Cup Finals. On now to Florida Panthers centerman Sam Bennett. Now, Sam Bennett has obviously never been a huge point producer in his career, with his career high being last year with 51 points in 76 games. This year, he's only got 5 points in the first 17 games of the season. Not off to a great offensive start, and he's not off to a good defensive start either. He's definitely playing better defensively than he was last year, but not a whole lot. It's kind of just like you lost Barkov. Is Bennett going to produce offensively or help out defensively? And he's really not doing either right now. They're definitely going to need Sam Bennett to start producing a little bit more so they can get back into a playoff spot. On now to the LA Kings, and we're going to be talking about winger Warren Foegele. Now, Warren Foegele, the last couple seasons, has really upped his point production. 20 goals and 41 points in his last year with the Oilers, 24 goals last year in his first year with the Kings, and 46 points. In 13 games this year, he's only got 3 goals. He doesn't have any assists so far this year, so Warren Foegele's definitely a guy you'd expect a little bit more from. His defensive play has always been pretty strong with just one down year in his last year with the Oilers. Last year, it was really good. This year, it's still really good. Just the offensive impact still isn't there. If LA wants to compete and potentially get out of the first round against Edmonton, they're definitely going to need Warren Foegele to pick it up. On now to the Minnesota Wild, and we're going to be talking about winger Marcus Foligno. Now, Marcus Foligno is a trusted veteran who's played a lot in the NHL since 2012-13. He hasn't been the highest point producer really ever, just one 40-point season, consistently kind of been in the 20s, but rock solid defensively. He's got 1 assist in 17 games so far this year, also minus 10. That's just not enough for a guy you're giving $4 million to, and a guy who's usually really trustworthy defensively, and he's not even showing it this year. This is his worst defensive season within the last 5 years, and his worst offensive season overall, too. So he's now 34 years old. I don't know if age is just catching up to him or if this is just a rough start for Marcus Foligno. On now to the Montreal Canadiens, and we're going to be talking about goaltender Sam Montembeault. Sam Montembeault's off to a really rough start this season. In 10 games, he's got a 4-4-1 record with an .857 save percentage and a 3.61 goals against average, sitting right at the bottom of the NHL in accordance to impact for goaltenders. Last year, he played in 60 games. He's up in the 80th percentile, even a little bit higher in accordance to goalie impact. He was really good last year. This year, he's off to a really rough start, and he's been splitting the net with Jakub Dobeš. If he doesn't start to pick it up, he could be losing that starter's job real soon. On now to the New Jersey Devils, and we're going to be talking about veteran winger Andre Palat. Now, Andre Palat is really trusted winger around the NHL, kind of thrived in Tampa Bay. Since he's been in New Jersey, kind of a rough couple years. Not as rough as this year offensively, though. 17 games, he's got a goal and an assist for 2 points. Seasons of 28, 31, and 23 points the last couple seasons, with some injuries mixed in there, too. His impact in the offensive zone just has not been there in the bottom quarter of impact within the league. His defense has been above league average, actually pretty solid for the most part. So he's still making some impact, but a guy that's making $6 million for the next 2 years for a team that's pretty tight to the cap, you need some more offensive production from Andre Palat. On now to the Nashville Predators, and we're going to be talking about Steven Stamkos. Now, Steven Stamkos has obviously had a Hall of Fame career, but man, I don't know if age is catching up to him or what exactly has been going on, but 19 games so far this year. He's got 4 goals and an assist for 5 points. Just scored a goal at the Global Series in Sweden to win it in Finland's first game for them. His defensive impact's been pretty good so far this year, but the offense has just been going in a linear downhill since 21-22 all the way now to 25-26. So Steven Stamkos, not too sure if he's going to spend a lot more time in Nashville or if he'll get moved, but his offensive impact just isn't there anymore. On now to the New York Islanders, and we're going to be talking about defenseman Alexander Romanov. Now, Romanov hasn't obviously produced a lot of points so far in his career. 20 points last year in 64 games, only 1 point in 13 games so far this season. He's playing second pairing minutes right now. His offensive and defensive impact are way down from last year. I felt like last year and the season before in 23-24 were probably the best years of his career. Right now, he's having the worst year of his career so far. So just signed to that 8-year extension. Alexander Romanov's going to have to pick it up for the Islanders. On now to the New York Rangers, and we're going to be talking about Captain JT Miller. So coming over to the Rangers last year, really solid production, over a point per game, 35 points in 32 games. So far this season, 4 goals and 5 assists for 9 points in 18 games. He is still impacting the ice, but just not at an elite level. He was really doing a better job of it last year and the year before. His defense is up from the last couple years, so you like to see that. It's not a terrible start from JT Miller, but you expect more from your first line center. On now to the Ottawa Senators, and we're going to be talking about winger Fabian Zetterlund. So Fabian Zetterlund had a rough going last year when he came over. 5 points in 20 games, no points in 6 playoff games. kind of give him a pass because he's traded mid-season. It does take a while to adapt sometimes, but he's just not off to a hot start so far this year. 1 goal in 18 games, considering he had 24 2 years ago, 17 in 64 games last year with the Sharks. Ottawa brought him in to score goals, and he's just not doing that whatsoever, and he's just not impacting the ice in the offensive zone in a positive way, and really not well in a defensive way either, but he is better defensively than he is offensively right now. He got a 3-year contract in the offseason for over $4 million, and he's just not been producing so far this year with the Senators. On now to the Philadelphia Flyers, and we're going to be talking about winger Matvei Michkov. Now, Matvei Michkov has put up now 9 points in 17 games. Really didn't start off too hot to start the year, but the last couple games have been better, but I was not too impressed with this guy coming into the season. Obviously, there was reports of him coming in overweight this season, and he didn't play hockey for 4 months because of an ankle injury, but it just wasn't really good for him to get behind the 8 ball to start this season. The offensive impact is not as good as last year, but it's still like overall pretty solid if you look at NHL quality. The defense actually has been there somewhat this year compared to being absolutely awful last year. So, I mean, the Flyers all around haven't really had too many guys that with terrible starts, and relative to expectation, he hasn't started too good this year. On now to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and we're going to be talking about defenseman Matt Dumba. Now, Matt Dumba hasn't been good for a couple years, if you ask me. Not the flashiest offensive producing defenseman in his prime, but did hit 50 points once. As you can tell over the last couple seasons, he's been in a couple different organizations, and he just hasn't been able to get his offensive game back while also not really playing well defensively. Was traded over to Pittsburgh this year. He's only played in 6 games, and he has 2 assists. He actually hasn't played enough minutes this year to have an analytical card. We're going to take a look at his card from last year. The defense was actually good 3 years ago in 22-23. It's been gradually just getting way worse every single year, basically to the point where he's becoming unplayable. Harrison Brunick's played more than him. Owen Pickering's been getting opportunities. Parker Wotherspoon as well. So Matt Dumba has not had a good start for the Penguins this year. On now to the Seattle Kraken, and we're going to be talking about defenseman Adam Larsson. Now, Adam Larsson was obviously a really high pick back in 2011, 4th overall. Never been the flashiest offensively with his highest point-producing season being back in 22-23 with the Seattle Kraken. He's mostly been known for his defensive style game, pretty hard-nosed as well, sitting at 6'3", 207. When I look at Adam Larsson this year, though, kind of been thrusted into a first-pairing role that he cannot handle so far. 22nd percentile in offensive impact, 13th percentile in defensive impact. The defense has been gradually getting worse since 22-23. I think Adam Larsson is a quality top 4 defenseman, but he's definitely not a first pairing defenseman, and I think this is why the analytics and the advanced numbers are not looking too good here for Larsson, and he hasn't had a good start this year. On now to the San Jose Sharks, and we're going to be talking about veteran winger Barclay Goodrow. Now, Goodrow is obviously in his second stint with the San Jose Sharks after moving on to Tampa Bay and the New York Rangers, then getting put on waivers last year and coming back to San Jose. Obviously has never been a great point producer in his career, with his best years coming with the New York Rangers before he was put on waivers. 8 points last year in 77 games, but only 1 point so far in 19 games, and that was an assist. Just definitely not good enough from Barclay Goodrow. Playing 4th-line minutes right now. The offensive impact is not there at all whatsoever. The defensive impact has been substantially better from the last couple seasons, so that's really the only positive you can look at from Barclay Goodrow this year, because $3.6 million doesn't equal 1 point in 19 games. Moving on now to the St. Louis Blues, and we're going to be talking about their starting goalie, Jordan Binnington. Jordan Binnington, along with their backup Joel Hofer overall, they're both not off to good starts whatsoever. Binnington taking more of the load, though, playing in 13 games so far this season. A 4-5-3 record with a 3.34 goals against average and an 8.69 save percentage. I felt like one of Binnington's better seasons as of late was back in 23-24 with a 28-21-5 record, a 9.13 save percentage, 2.84 goals against average last year. He didn't really have the greatest stats before Four Nations, really picked it up after Four Nations and finished with a 900 save percentage. Obviously this year, that's really down. He's sitting right at the bottom of the NHL in accordance to goaltender impact this year. He is definitely going to have to figure this out if the Blues want to turn it around and be as much of an impact at the Olympics as he was at Four Nations. On now to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we're going to be talking about winger Oliver Bjorkstrand. Now, Oliver Bjorkstrand, I've always felt like, has been a pretty underrated player in the NHL, producing like a good middle six player and providing really good defense. Ever since coming to Tampa Bay, half a point a game last year. You kind of give him the benefit of the doubt of getting traded midseason. 1 goal in 18 games this year, 6 points overall. He has been a pretty consistent 20-goal scorer throughout his career. The only time he didn't get it, basically, was 18 back in 21-22, but he only played in 56 games. So Tampa really needs Oliver Bjorkstrand to step it up here. If we take a look at overall impact, he's been getting fourth-line minutes because he hasn't been producing. He's going into an unrestricted free agent summer as well. He's making $5.4 million this year. I feel like he's always been a reliable two-way winger, and that has not stopped this year, but the overall offensive impact is the worst it's been, before 2021, and by a substantial amount. So the finishing just isn't there whatsoever. He's obviously been a consistent goal scorer throughout his career. You hope that he can pick it up and that Tampa can get back up in the standings. On now to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we're going to be talking about right-handed defenseman Brandon Carlo. Brandon Carlo has always been a pretty solid stay-at-home defenseman, not really ever producing a lot offensively. 2 points in 18 games this year. He's never hit the 20-point mark in a season, and this is his 9th NHL season now at this point, so you kind of know what you're getting from Brendan Carlo. I think the problem that I have with it this season is the defensive impact has been awful. For a guy that you're paying to be defensive and he's not going to be putting up offensive points, it's just been a disaster of a season for Brendan Carlo and the Toronto Maple Leafs. They gave up a first-round pick to get him. That first-round pick belongs to Boston. It's only top 5 protected. If the Leafs somehow don't make the playoffs and even get a top 10 pick, they might not get that pick. So you hope Brendan Carlo can pick it up here. I know he's out right now with an injury. He will be back pretty soon, but they picked up this guy to play top 4 minutes, and they need him to be a lot better defensively. On now to the Utah Mammoth, and we're going to be talking about centerman Jack McBain. So Jack McBain got a pretty big contract this offseason, making $4.25 million. I think Utah is definitely hoping he can be the 3C of the future. He's not producing like it offensively, though. I know you don't want the flashiest amount of points for a third-line center, but you need more than you're getting with 3 points in 19 games. He has 27, 26, and 26 points over the past 3 seasons. I think they were hoping he could improve on that, maybe get to the 35, 40-point mark, which would be pretty solid production for a third-line center, but they're just not getting that at all. His offensive impact has been okay. I think he's getting snake-bitten a little bit offensively. Defensively, he's having the worst season he's ever had. 13th percentile defensive impact so far this season. A 5-year deal at 4.25. I actually thought it was a 4-year deal. So Jack McBain's still young, obviously, still has a lot to prove, but they're going to need him to pick it up if he wants to be the 3C of the future. On now to the Vancouver Canucks, and we're going to be talking about right-handed defenseman Tyler Myers. Now, Tyler Myers came in hot as a rookie, 48 points, has never eclipsed that ever since. Everyone thought he was going to be this super solid two-way defenseman throughout his career. I just don't think he's been that whatsoever. I think he's been really below average defensively throughout most of his career, and he hasn't been able to produce a lot offensively either. He's got 6 points so far in 21 games. He has been kind of thrusted into a role that he's probably not ready for, playing in first pair minutes, being in the 3rd percentile defensively. This is the worst he has been in 5 years, and I just cannot believe that it's been getting worse for Tyler Myers defensively. Offensively, he's been okay overall. He's on a better contract now at $3 million, but I don't think Tyler Myers is off to a good start at all this season. On now to the Vegas Golden Knights, and we're going to be talking about forward Riley Smith. Riley Smith was reacquired at the deadline last year from the New York Rangers, hoping that he could help Vegas on a playoff run last year. He was decent overall in the playoffs, but not too great. Re-signed this year, and he hasn't really been that good of a depth winger so far. In 18 games, he's got 3 goals and 3 assists for 6 points, playing third-line minutes mostly. Always been a pretty reliable, two-way winger while he can still score goals, but this year he's just not scoring goals. The defense has been there, though, playing league average for the most part. Vegas obviously struggles to score at times. Riley Smith is a guy that can score goals, and I think if Vegas wants to go on a long playoff run this year, Riley Smith's going to have to figure it out. On now to the Washington Capitals, and we're going to be talking about forward Connor McMichael. Now, Connor McMichael surprised a lot of people last year with a really good season, 26 goals and 31 assists for 57 points. He just really has not matched that so far this year at all. In 19 games, only scoring 2 goals and 5 assists for 7 points. Has been playing a little bit of center, but he has been playing a decent amount on the wing as well. He's probably getting snake bitten a little bit offensively, considering his impact has been above league average. The defense just has not been there so far in his NHL career, despite the stint he played in 21-22 before getting sent back down to Hershey of the AHL. I was kind of curious about some guys on Washington this year that had career years, in Pierre-Luc Dubois, Connor McMichael, Alexi Protas, and how they would really come out and perform this year. And Connor McMichael's been kind of a guy who hasn't been able to replicate his performance from last year. Washington's kind of struggling right now, and they'll need McMichael to figure it out if they want to get back in the playoffs. On now to the final team in the Winnipeg Jets, and we're going to be going with Luke Schenn, who was acquired at last year's trade deadline. Now, Luke Schenn obviously has never been a flashy offensive player. The highest amount of points he's had in recent memory was 21 back in 2022-2023 with the Vancouver Canucks before getting traded to the Toronto Maple Leafs at the deadline. This year, he's played in 14 games with the Jets, and he's only recorded 1 assist so far. Obviously, he's a hard-nosed, physical defensive player who just is not playing defense well this year. His impact has just been really poor playing in third pairing minutes, kind of been in and out of the lineup just because he hasn't been good enough overall, not providing any offense whatsoever in a positive way. So the Jets are going to need Luke Schenn to pick it up here if they want to go on a playoff run this year. All right, so that's going to do it here, going through all 32 NHL teams and identifying one guy who's off to a rough start. Curious to know what you guys think. Were these picks pretty accurate, or was I just totally off about some of them? Curious to know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for future content.